Hi, everyone. Sorry for that delay. A little bit of technical issues going on here. Welcome to our program. My name is Alex Wisch. I'm a performance coach, trainer, entrepreneur, and athlete. I've worked with some top professional athletes and top CEOs, both on the physical and mental frontier to achieve peak performance. Here with us today, doing the interview, we have Cindy Garvin, and who is a clinical psychologist. And I'm going to have her start us off.
Awesome. Thanks, Alex. So today we're talking about positive psychology and how even the smallest understanding of it can really help achieve a significant amount of success. So I wonder, can you start off by just sharing with us what is positive psychology?
So positive psychology is a scientific approach to what makes life worth living. The original founder, Martin Seligman, was an individual who saw the world of psychology or therapy and saw there was such a large emphasis on looking at people's weaknesses or looking at what was going wrong in their lives. And he just couldn't see how this was productive to people getting and feeling better, really. Like he thought there had to be a better way. And so instead, his focus and the focus in positive psychology is looking at people's strengths. What are the positive aspects in people's lives that we can highlight on and build off of and take that energy and build happiness off it and achieve success. And it's not just, in his mind too, it's not just, can we get someone to normal or average, but can we take them to greatness?
It sounds like you've had a significant amount of experience yourself with positive psych. Have you had any specific impact on your life with positive psych?
Yes, I would say so. With my past dealing with major depression and also having a brain injury during a sailing incident, there was points where I had significant symptoms of ADHD. And there was a point where I developed these weaknesses where I couldn't recognize people's names. So they'd come up to me and say, "Alex, how's it going? How are you?" And they knew me really well. I just would not have any idea who they were. And I started to kind of fall into this hole of looking at wow, I have all these large gaps. What am I going to do? Where's my life going to go? How's it going to affect my career, my interpersonal life? And then the way I transitioned is I knew that one is fitness is something I'm sure you've all seen. That's something I really focus on, and I could take that and accelerate that. And regardless of memory, people's names, I'm still very good interpersonally and develop other ways to compensate. And in the business world, there are things like myself, I do run, 2 businesses, and I do advising for large wellness companies. And there are things with admin and other areas that I'm not good at. And so they're my weaknesses, and I just delegate those. But I focus on what I'm good at, and that's creating connections, relating to people, talk about metaphors, fitness, and really energizing people to achieve greatness.
That sounds like in order to really feel fulfilled in life, it's not about lessening the weaknesses or ameliorating challenges, saying, okay, here are my areas of weakness. I know that. I'm going to focus on the things that I'm good at, the things that I feel like I don't need a significant amount of help with. And by building off of those, you really become more successful.
I would say you become more successful, and I'd say that there's a couple pieces to this equation too. And the overall concept we talk about, or I dive a lot into, is this idea of flow. Being fully immersed into a situation where productivity skyrockets, performance goes through the roof, and you're just one with your body, you're one with your situation, you're connected with your team, all the above. Beyond that, with this whole concept of flow, flow is elevated when you're engaging in a mastery skill. So when you actually are engaging in strengths, you're more likely to get into flow. And then when you're in flow, you also are more likely to learn more, right? So if you're constantly focused on a weakness, something you're really struggling with, that can also, not only is it going to be challenging to build that up, but the learning process is slower to get it up to a level playing field where you could take a strength and you can take that strength and build it and build it and build it well beyond where you're currently at.
So I know flow is, a huge concept in positive psychology. I would assume that myself as well, but many listeners are thinking, how much, education, how many certifications do I need in positive psychology before I can even see a difference in my life? Do you really have to be an expert, or can you really just master the basics in order to dive in and start feeling the positive effects of positive psych?
Yeah. So, I mean, to get into flow, I mean, there's a lot of people on a day-to-day basis. I even talk to people what's working for them, and people, engage in flow. The idea is, can we engage in flow more frequently, more daily, understanding it better, understanding the cycle, the recovery process, and treating it with respect. Um, Beyond that, when it comes to basics, if we're talking about peak performers, which, the people who are dialing this conversation, want to know, like, or want to become a peak performer or are peak performers. A great example is someone like Dan Gable. Dan Gable was a wrestler, and he was an Olympic medalist. He won the worlds. He got a gold in the Olympics. And what made him so amazing was not that he knew 1,001 moves, or he could flip people over his head or do all sorts of crazy things. There was just one move he knew, a double leg takedown, going in right with two arms and taking a person down. But he knew that move so well from every single angle that regardless of his opponent, he could take them down. So the idea is, the top people who are peak performers, they take some of these basics and they become a master of the basics, right? They know how to hit the basics from every angle. So if you talk about, like, if I just kind of shift this a little bit, but then, like, some things to know for basics are like exercise, sleep, nutrition, right? And if we know how to, like, our sleep, which is so important for our brain functioning, to get into flow, but if we know how to, like, achieve 7 hours of sleep every night and just know how to move it into our schedule from multiple angles, or the nutrition piece, some of the more basic concepts, instead of doing all these crazy diets and tricks and supplements, just keep it very simple, but get really good at the simple pieces that we know that work, or incorporating the exercise and figure out how to make it into your lifestyle. I mean, building off those concepts of simplicity can take us to great places.
So it's sort of like a Mr. Miyagi thing, a wax on, wax off. Once you've mastered that, it's really going to be beneficial across the board.
100%. People try to make things way too complicated. And the more complicated they make things, the more they actually end up neglecting the simple pieces that really make the bigger differences.
So when people are thinking about this, I know that sometimes it can be helpful to have experts be part of the starting process. I know you talked with me a little bit earlier, but I think our viewers would love to know that you're offering a particular discount or a particular sort of reward for being part of these live streams. So I was wondering if you could talk a little bit to that.
Yeah, I'll dive into that. So one thing is, like, again, there's a couple pieces to kind of tie it back into positive psychology. Social network, in that, like, your social environments, whether it's friends, family, what community you have, or in this particular case, we're talking about coaches, can be really significant in driving this happiness and kind of completing this picture. There's only so much that we can see ourselves on a daily basis, and we get this hyper focus in our own little world. But when you have someone else coming in and having an outside perspective, that's when you can really, really move the needle. So currently right now I have 10 spots open, and what I'm offering is, for the first 5 people to sign up working with me, is a free session. But I dive into the fitness, I dive into the sleep, the exercise, a lot of the basics, and off that I build up, what's your meeting, what's the purpose you're going into, and how do we also achieve this higher peak performance and higher level productivity, whether you're an athlete or you're a CEO, an executive, or you're just a life enthusiast.
So going back to the positive psych piece, so obviously we covered the fact that you really can't get into the positive psych elements until you've got those basics mastered, which again can be really difficult for most of us. I don't think that I get more than 6 hours of sleep regularly, so perhaps I should sign up with you later. But I know that we talked about developing strengths. How would I even begin to know what my strengths are? I think I would say, I'm personable, but do I really know if I'm personable? What do other people think? So is there a way or a tool that I could assess my various strengths?
Yeah, I'd say there's a couple different ways to do this. There are tools, and I will talk about that in one moment. But on a basic level, if you look at some of the things in life right now that you might be particularly good at, or you feel some of your elevating points, and kind of write them all down, and then kind of look for common grounds between them, like whether they're physical activities, whether they're things you engage with friends or families, like what are the common grounds between those activities, and then you kind of can slowly dissect some of the strengths. Outside of that, some good starting points are the VIA, which is a Values and Action Survey. It takes about 7 minutes. I'll post a link to that at the end of this live. And there's also another one outside of that. There's something called the High Five Test, which is literally HIGH5test.com. And that's a little longer. And that's more of like a newer test, but that would probably take around 30 minutes compared to the other one takes about 7. But they really start to jump into, they ask you a lot of questions and help you figure out what these strengths are, so you have an idea of what you can focus on.
I know the VIA is significantly backed by research and literature. I know we never want to do anything that's not evidence-based. So I like the fact that they had a huge sample size, so people can really trust this measure.
Yeah, no, I mean, that was something that was also put together by Martin Seligman. So it's been there's been a lot of research, a large sample size, a lot of great information behind that. And the other one, it's something a little more new. It's definitely something worth playing around and getting a little more insight. Remember, take all these with a grain of salt. Everybody, the way I see it, is when it comes down to even using these tests in some ways or another, at least when I work with people, everyone is an outlier in some capacity. So these are a starting point. They don't tell you exactly who you are. They give you a direction, a starting point to kind of build off and explore.
So beyond just getting to know your strengths better, do you have any other suggestions about where to get started for people?
Yeah, well, a couple of things I want to talk about. So I guess one question is, how do I incorporate this concept into my life? And just a couple little tricks behind that. Now I do a lot of physical activity, and I also am working with a lot of top, very impressive CEOs and individuals that can sometimes be intimidating, right? And so, to get in the right mindset going in there, if I were to tell myself like a bunch of things in my head, and some of them could be weaknesses and strengths, I don't know how convincing or of an argument that would really present itself. But when I go into some of these, or even today when I was doing a workout, I was over doing my CrossFit workout, very, very challenging workout, and doing some rope climbs and all sorts of crazy stuff. I'll have like a mantra I'll say, which is I'm good at, when it comes down to it, focusing. I know I'm strong, and I know I'm determined. So I have like a 3-word mantra that has my 3 strengths, and I'll say it to myself throughout that workout. Or if I'm in the workout and I have to take a quick rest, I'll say it to kind of get myself engaged. And other things too, to kind of talk about your strengths is, giving yourself a little prep talk. So before going into a room, all these top professionals out there will have coaches on the stage with them, talking up the storm with them before they get on the stage, get them all psyched up. But you yourself, you could talk yourself up. There's some things with positive self-talk, again, emphasizing the positives, what have you done to get ready for this meeting? Preparation, what you've done, there was an athlete I worked with, Josh Levin, who were training for nationals, getting ready for the Olympics. And we did a visualization of this. We had him sit down in this room, and we talked about everything he's done for preparation and what his strengths were compared to his competition. And then we took all these concepts that I had him close his eyes and visualize and put into a little tiny box. And he took that box, and I had him put into his little back pocket. And I said, when he goes out there and he was doing speed climbing, he's doing bouldering, he's doing top roping. I was like, look, we took all that stuff in this little box. When you go out there, just know you have this little box full of all these amazing things that you have trained, you've done, you've worked hard towards, and your strengths, and that's with you no matter where you go. That box is now part of you. So this idea of building off your strengths is enormous.
It sounds like, I think, as you said, the realm of psychology tends to focus on the negatives. I think as a culture, we also tend to focus on the negatives. We always want to be striving to be better, to be stronger, to be faster. But in doing that, we're also thinking, okay, well, I need to be, have a stronger, pull down, or I need to be able to squat more. I need to be able to do this and this and this. So we're really trained. We've trained ourselves to look for the negatives. So it sounds like now we're trying to do the opposite. Once we've identified our strengths, we need to be looking more for those. And mantras can really help with that.
Yeah, mantras, positive affirmations, and just kind of focusing. I think, some people do positive affirmations, and, you talk about, you see, Tony Robbins, and you see a lot of these, top professionals, life coaches. And, some people say, well, they kind of look at them and be like, I don't know if I believe what they're doing. But, if you actually look at what they're doing, they're making people feel good. They're making people feel happy. And when you're happy and you're feeling good, you're increasing dopamine, right? And, they have these things that bring people together. Then when you bring people together, you're increasing oxytocin also. And then you can get group flow. And then you get more creative, and you lead, and you feel just great, and your creativity's up, which increases productivity. I mean, they foster an environment for productivity, for people to create networking. But, outside of that, they don't teach crazy tricks. These top people that make millions of dollars in the industry, they don't teach crazy tricks. They actually really nail down these basic concepts of just, let's eliminate all that stuff in our life. Or, even when it comes to this positive psychology, I mean, when I talk about social network, I mean, to me, that was huge. When I got out of my major depression, having a group of people to be around that not only, I mean, it's good for them to, to build off and understand areas you can improve upon, but to they have them make you feel valued for who you are and what you bring to the table, and remind you that on a daily basis. And being around those people just helps you grow tremendously and keeps you motivated.
So positive psych is all about focusing on the positive stuff, but obviously there's negative stuff in life, stress being one of the great killers. So how would positive psych suggest that you even begin to tackle stress?
Yeah, so if we're looking at stress, one concept about stress which is really interesting. For many years, the idea of stress, and and probably you could speak to this too, but in like the realm of therapy, was this idea of like, let's eliminate stress. Stress is a bad thing. It's going to shorten your lifespan. It's going to ruin relationships, all the above. There were some interesting studies. There's some great TED Talks about it. There were some mothers who had kids with severe disabilities, and they did a longitudinal studies with these mothers, and then they had to control. And what they found out, these mothers, they assumed this was a group of people that went under a lot of stress. There's one group of mothers that went under this stress, and they thought, this situation, like, I don't know how I'm gonna get to the next day. This is so taxing on me. Another group of mothers was like, what? Like, I'm going through this. I love my son or my daughter. I'm getting stronger each day. This is gonna make me a better person. And then the third group was a control group, which they took, which just didn't really experience that much stress at all throughout their lives. And, someone would be like looking at it from the outside perspective, from this original point of view, being like, oh, well, the controlled group that didn't experience that much stress, they definitely, lived longer and healthier lives. But what we actually found out is that stress is healthy, and it actually helps us live longer lives. It helps us live healthier lives, but it's our perception of it. If we take on stress and if we perceive it as something good, as something beneficial, of something that's helping us grow, then it's going to extend our lifespan and keep us healthier and happier. But if we see stress as something negative, that's when it's going to start to cause a lot of wear and tear on the body. In addition to that concept, something that's really powerful they talk about in positive psychology is gratitude. And being grateful. And people say doing grace at meals, or daily gratitude. But the concept behind it is that in our brain, if we do think about a lot of negatives, and we do think about about a lot of judgments in those areas. We need to start somewhere with replacing those thoughts with positive thoughts, things that we're grateful for. And that's why, like, I have my clients, some people do it at nighttime, some people in the morning, well, to do a gratitude journal. And I'll just have them, pick anywhere from like 3 to 5 examples. And it's not just you're picking examples like, oh, I'm grateful to be alive. Like, you need to be really specific. You need to be like, I'm really grateful that my friend Joy came over and brought me, a fresh baked bread, or my training partner came to the gym and pushed me through those 2 additional reps. The more specific you have the examples, the more memorable they are, and the more they're going to start replacing those negative thoughts. And then when you get into negative situations, you're actually going to be thinking more about the positive things in your life rather than the negative outcome. And dwelling on the negative is going to become shorter. So overall, it makes us happier and more productive.
That's wonderful. So I know we're just about out of time. And I know that at the end, you're going to post the link to the VIA survey, which takes 7-ish minutes, completely free. Obviously, you can pay for if you want a huge, extensive version of it, but the entirety of it is free. Beyond that, do you want to give us a little preview of next week, or are we going to wait and have to find out what happens next week?
So going to next week, something I'm going to talk about, because someone asked me to kind of bring this up, is this concept of burnout. It's something that we, a lot of us experience. Some of us experience on a very micro level. Some of us experience on a very larger level. But either, whether we're an athlete training, whether, we're in the office working hard, we're an entrepreneur, it's how much can we work ourselves to a point that we're not digging too much of a recovery hole, and how do we keep, that in check? And over a course of a year, what protocols we put into place, and also on a daily level, what protocols we put into place to avoid a larger level of burnout to prevent us from getting us to our goal of where we want to go in life.
Wonderful. So is there anything else? I know, just to reiterate the fact that you've got about 10 slots left for clients. So I want to make sure that people know that. Yeah, sign up quickly.
I have 10 slots left for clients. And if anyone, for the first 5 that sign up, offering a free session, what you can do is just shoot me a message on either Instagram, or you shoot me a message on Facebook. I'll get right back to you and can set that up. We'll do a consultation and just touch base and see how we can help you out.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Alex.
All right. My pleasure. Take care, everybody.